With Trump's 25% tariffs on products from Canada and Mexico, the automotive industry will never be the same. And while most automakers are in panic mode, there are companies that don't rely on Mexican and Canadian production and sourcing all that much and could come out as winners in this situation. Subaru is one of them, and many expect it to be one of the biggest winners in this crisis. But things aren't all that simple, and we're not sure if Subaru CEO is quietly celebrating Trump's tariffs, as some say, or if he's worried about the company's future just like others. Let's have a look. No direct impact for now. With new tariffs, Trump's new administration is about to bring some of the most radical changes we've seen in the automotive industry for decades. Soon enough, 25% duties on all products from Canada and Mexico will come into effect. And if there's a part of an industry that's about to suffer, that's the automotive sector. Because a huge number of vehicles sold in the United States are assembled in Mexico or Canada, or at least use lots of parts imported from the US's key trade partners. Pretty much every automaker is affected, domestic companies in particular. On the other hand, things might be quite the opposite in the case of Subaru. Subaru may not be a major car maker when we look at the global scale, but no one can deny their strong presence in the US market, complemented by an impressive following and fan base. That's why both Subaru officials and loyal customers are feeling relief, because Subaru may not be affected by new tariffs all that much. Subaru has no plants in Canada or Mexico. No, it has an assembly in Indiana, where some of the key models are produced. Models like the Outback, the Legacy, and the Ascent. Of course, there could be a minor effect, but still, we don't believe that there are many parts of Subaru sourced from these two countries, so the three models, which account for more than a third of Subaru's total US sales, shouldn't be affected by new duties. Made in Japan. As you've probably noticed, we mentioned that Subaru has just one plant in North America, in Lafayette, Indiana, where it produces models like the Outback, Legacy, and Ascent. But these are just three models. Subaru's lineup is notably bigger, right? As you can see, the Indiana plant is focused on larger models. As for the rest of the offer, it's actually imported. That's right, the majority of Subaru sales come from imported models, so you're probably wondering now, how could they not be affected by tariffs? The thing is that all of them are produced in the same factory in Japan. All of them come from the famous Gunma manufacturing plant, which takes care of compact and subcompact models. Popular sellers like the Forester and Crosstrek, as well as models like Impreza, WRX, BRZ, and the all-electric Solterra, they're all coming from Japan, but still they remain affordable. It's because the US and Japan have a long history of trade agreements, which trace back to the 1960s. The most recent one was signed a little bit over 5 years ago and aimed to further enhance bilateral trade between the two industries. For the automotive sector, this means that 2.5% tariffs on Japanese cars is still there. Tariffs on car parts that are used for models assembled in the US are also low, so altogether, Subaru benefits a lot from the new tariffs because, unlike the vast majority of rivals, it doesn't source its parts from Canada or Mexico. And it's not like Subaru is the only Japanese automaker that benefits in this way. Toyota, Honda, Mazda, and Nissan also export more or less vehicles to the US and benefit in the same way. Korean automakers are in an even better position because there are no tariffs at all. But still, the catch is that pretty much all of these automakers at least source some parts from Mexico or Canada, so they're affected at least to some point. It may not last for long. At this moment, the tariffs are quite beneficial for the Japanese automakers, especially when we talk about cars made in Japan. But the thing is that the current situation won't last forever. Sooner or later, new tariffs will be imposed on Japanese-made cars as well. Otherwise, Canadian, Mexican, and Chinese tariffs would make no sense if we talk about things like saving the US automotive industry, etc. The main problem here is the trade deficit the US has with Japan. Last year, it was $68.5 billion, so it's pretty clear that Trump is trying to figure out how to deal with this imbalance. Tariffs are one of the tools, and if we go just a few weeks back, we can hear President Donald Trump saying, "We want to get that trade deficit to zero." So one of the key tools would be 25% tariffs on Japanese cars and parts. Of course, that raised concerns within the Japanese automotive industry, prompting companies to seek assistance from the government to mitigate the impact. And no other Japanese automaker seems to be more in danger than Subaru. As you probably know, this is a relatively small company that produces less than 1 million vehicles annually. To give you a better perspective, Toyota sold nearly 11 million cars last year. But it's not about total sales, it's about Subaru's over-reliance on the US performance. 68.4% of all Subarus were sold in the US last year, and we're not sure that we can find any other automaker that relies so much on the single export market. It's needless to say that the new tariffs and potential market disturbance would put the whole company under pressure, so we're not sure if Subaru officials actually celebrate Trump's new tariffs. Things could easily go out of control and even put Subaru out of business. Just imagine a situation where the company's two best-selling models, Forester and Crosstrek, which accounted for nearly 260,000 US sales in the last year, suddenly become way more expensive and demand cools down. Other models imported from Japan may not be as popular, but combined, they also have a decent share. With all of them compromised, it's pretty clear that this would be a disaster, not just for the US operations, but for Subaru as a whole. More complex than it seems. Subaru officials recently spoke about the significant challenges the automotive industry is facing due to the US government's tariff policies, particularly in relation to the steel and automobile sectors. Subaru sources all of its steel locally in the United States, but still, it'll certainly feel the ripple effect of the tariffs. Simply, the increased cost being passed on by suppliers would put pressure on Subaru's margins. The difference between the cost to produce and the sale price of vehicles. Subaru officials also highlighted that the potential tariffs on imported cars and auto parts could further exacerbate the problem, in the way that they could cause a significant increase for customers, with the possible rise of the price of the average vehicle by as much as $5,000 to $7,000. That could potentially lead to a notable drop in customer demand, leading to a slower economy overall. So Subaru's officials are convinced that prices need to remain competitive to stimulate sales and maintain growth, despite the economic uncertainty. Essentially, tariffs are nothing more but a typical tax, something that needs to be paid by someone within the system. It could be customers, manufacturers, or suppliers, and of course, no one is particularly interested in taking that part. But when these costs trickle down the supply chain, cars will inevitably become more expensive. The question is, to the automaker or the final customer? Customers will have to pay eventually. Of course, customers will suffer the most, as the additional costs will almost certainly be passed on to them. Even though Subaru assembles cars in the US, imports from Japan, and uses local steel, there will be increased costs. Of course, they will be passed down the supply chain. Suppliers will raise their prices to cover additional costs caused by the tariffs, and these increased prices will then impact manufacturers like Subaru. With margins being squeezed, prices will inevitably have to go up. So what can we conclude? Car prices will go up, one way or another. We say one way or another because even if there's a scenario where Subaru would survive all these tariffs without a scratch, we're pretty sure that prices would not remain the same. Subaru, even if it remains unaffected by tariffs, will continue to operate within a larger automotive market where tariffs on other manufacturers could raise the prices of their vehicles. So if a competitor's costs go up due to tariffs and it decides to pass these increases to customers, we're pretty sure that Subaru, seeing this opportunity, would decide to raise their prices as well, even if production costs remain unchanged. Simply, that's a perfect opportunity to increase competitive profitability. Even a small price increase would allow Subaru to capture additional margin. In short, Subaru would increase the price, but still keep it slightly lower compared to rivals, and that would ensure extra profit per unit. It's a common practice, a strategic move often seen in competitive industries, to take advantage of the market dynamics and maximize profits. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.